guys is never short. It's time to sit down and let the Degens cook. That's right. You know they're coming through and hitting heavy. It's time to talk some Dynasty and talk some Debbie. My guys is never short. Time to sit down and let the Degens cook. Ow!
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Dynasty Degens episode 42. I am Nerdboy Takes, and we have a fun one today. So we are talking to an amateur boxer, a gentleman that is
that's right.
is the co-host and co-founder of Reception Perception, Mr. James Koh at James D. Koh. James, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I just want to, just for my guy, Matt Harmon, I am the co-owner of Reception Perception, but I am certainly not the co-founder because my guy, Matt, I mean, he built that bootstraps, baby. You know what I'm saying? I am just lucky enough and blessed enough that he allowed me to kind of sort of be business partners with him in this adventure that we're calling Reception Perception. But yeah, man, I'm glad to be part of the show and happy that you invited me on.
Yeah, I'm glad that you could come on, and you know, I love what you guys do over there. I've been following you for quite a while, and I'm glad that you're part of that because I think it's a nice cohesive unit you have there, and you feed off each other really well. It's
Man,
good. It's good television, as they say.
Nah, brother, we have to have done at least 1,000 shows together now, going back all the way to our NFL Network days when I was at the network and he was a writer for .com. And we did, hundreds of shows over there. Now we've done hundreds of shows with our Reception Perception show. And it's interesting, man, like, you know, the show does really well. Like, we do good numbers overall. And it's kind of crazy because it's the exact opposite of what everyone tells you to do. Everyone's like, oh, we need short form. We need more people. We need more names. We need digestible bits. And we do literally the exact opposite. In one of our podcast shows, we might talk about 5 players. Okay. We might spend 15 minutes talking about Jameson Williams. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the exact opposite of what should be successful. But I think the reason people like the show is because even if you are zoned out, you know, you're tuning into 2 guys that just like talking to each other and like talking football. And I think that's the secret sauce, honestly, if we're talking about the Reception Perception podcast.
Yeah, and you can feel that as a listener. You can feel the fact that these guys like each other. They're comfortable with each other. I've listened to podcasts where these guys probably don't like each other very much. You know, like I could see I could see you and Matt having a beer after the show, hanging out and just talking and having a good time. But, you know, there's some guys that just don't mesh like that. And I think it goes a long way for sure. It's just the flow of the show and just the atmosphere and everything. I think that's really important. So you guys have the ism, if you will, you have it. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about you before we get started on stuff. So a fun icebreaker that I usually go into is I talk to my guests and I ask them their favorite TV show, whether it's right now, all time, whatever that may be, whatever comes to your mind first off the bat, and then tell me the character from that TV show that you would most want to be in a fantasy league with. So who would you love to be in a league with off of that show?
I think the best show of all time is The Sopranos. And maybe I'm just saying that because I'm a freaking, middle-aged millennial. I don't know. But I think Sopranos, you go across all the seasons and you just take the show in totality. I think it's the best show that's ever been made. By the way, you can still go watch that. And I think it still holds up. You know, there are certain shows I think that don't, like, for example, The Wire was a really, really good show too. You ever try to go back and watch like the season 1 or 2 of The Wire? It does not hold up, dude. It looks like
it looks bad. And there's some, like, the whole concept. It's good to go back and watch that, but it doesn't hit for newer generations. Like the payphones, tapping of the wire, all that.
Yeah. Right.
And people are like, there's beepers and stuff, and people doesn't. It's not going to hit for like my children. You know, they're not going to be like,
I hear
this is interesting.
I hear that.
But
yeah,
Sopranos definitely.
Yeah, it's a great show. So fantasy league, Yeah, it'd probably be Chris. I loved Chris. I think it probably would be Chris. Although any of those like side character guys would be a lot of fun, I think, to be in a league with, man. So yeah, that would be that'd be my choice. There you
Yeah.
go.
Sopranos is actually a big hit on the show. I think a lot of people either say Sopranos, The Wire. We get Breaking Bad a lot,
Yeah, Breaking Bad's good too. Yeah.
variations of those shows off and on and stuff. So I think Chris has been a popular answer. I think you could probably like you can make a spin on any of these guys really. Like it's when these shows, these like, amazing evolutionary shows that come out.
Yeah.
There's so much character development in all these characters that like you could make a case for anybody because
Yeah. No, it's true.
you fall in love with everyone or you despise somebody, and that already creates a dynamic. And it's like, Sopranos builds that. People are like, oh, it starts so slow, and it's like every really good show is all development for the first almost 3-4 episodes, and then
It's true.
you get in, you get invested. Like Game of Thrones. Like I couldn't watch the first episode for like the
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
half a year. I think my girlfriend was like, you got to watch it, and I was like, once you see, like once you figure out all these people and where they're coming and going, it's
Yeah,
like,
right,
man, I think I
right.
watched every season in like a day at that point in time.
Okay, now
Um,
now that being said, Game of Thrones, I think you could stop watching after season 4, maybe season
Yeah.
5. Season 6 and 7 were just atrocious. So so for me, I loved Game of Thrones. I was addicted to Game of Thrones. I watched first 3 seasons. I was just all in, man. Season 4 was really, really good. Where is the Red Wedding? That's season 3.
I think it's the end of season 3 because then, yeah, I think that's end of season 3, like the final episode of season 3.
Yeah, so season 3 and then season 4 I thought was pretty good too, and then everything started to fall apart a little bit. So, anyways, but
Yeah.
no, Game of Thrones was awesome. It hit like fire for about, for those first 4 seasons. It was great.
Yeah, it was great. There was a dive bar down the street from my house that had a big projector, and we would all go there.
Uh-huh.
I think it was on
Okay.
every Sunday night. Yeah, so every Sunday night we'd go over there, and I'd
That's
watch the
crazy.
live episode with 100 people.
What?
And
Dude,
it was
that's
just like
awesome.
it was cinema. Everyone would react, and like something would happen, and there'd be a giant
That's
gasp in the
crazy.
bar, and
Wow.
but it would be like dead silent the entire episode
That's
because everyone's just so
crazy.
invested. And yeah, it was a cult like atmosphere most of the time with Game of Thrones when it was going on. So
Wow, that's nuts.
yeah, I think it would be a travesty if I didn't talk wide receivers with you. I just talked wide receivers last week. I had a whole show. We did a whole mock draft on up and coming, with the rookies and everything. But I said we got to do wide receivers. So let's just jump into it. How did you get involved in reception perception? Like, how did you get involved with Matt, and how did you jump into the game, if you will, like as far as coming into content and all that good stuff?
So, look, I was at NFL Network for about 5 years, and then the previous 5 years I was over at DirecTV working on the Fantasy Zone channel as part of the Red Zone package, right? So I've been doing fantasy football and just football in particular for a long time now. I've been working in television for, gosh, I don't know, 15, 16 years, right? So I ran across Matt's stuff when he first got brought on with NFL Media. He was working for the .com side, writing columns and doing content there, and we decided to bring him onto the podcast and just kind of sort of build it from there. And so that's when I first ran across reception perception. Now, NFL has this like really weird, messed up policy where they hire all these guys like Matt to be like part-time dudes. So basically you work 30 hours or something, but you work for about 7 months. And then they let you go. And then basically it's like you're hoping that they will call you back. You're seasonal, and you're hoping that they will call you back, but there's no expectation that they will. Well, they brought him back for, I think it was like 3 years or whatever it was. Right. So, but the first time I read his stuff, I'm like, this stuff is extremely interesting. And it was, and obviously a lot of people feel this way, but I also took him under my wing in regards to, okay, well, let's make this television friendly, right? Let's turn this into something that you can claim as your own and build on. And so I was the first person to kind of walk him through how to turn this into video content. And I think he appreciated that part of it. But I do remember telling him that first season that, his first season with NFL where his contract was up, I said, Matt, whatever you do this off season, man, never, ever give up the intellectual property of what you've created here. Cause it's really, really interesting. And I think that reception perception is your future. That's what I told him. I was like, I think this is something that's really brilliant. It's really easy to understand. It's digestible, and it's really, really marketable. So wherever you write, wherever you go, never allow them to take that IP. And I think that stuck with him as well, right? So when he told me that he was going to take this product and create a standalone site, there's obviously, just from an outside observer standpoint of, okay, that's a little risky because you're asking people to pay a subscription for just wide receiver data. What's the business model there, But for me, I really didn't care because I'm just like, I am going to invest in the person. And I know Matt is an extremely hard worker, and I will invest with him. So I invested into the business for a partial ownership stake. And he basically handles all the content and all the boring ass shit that you do in the background of like website management, like business, like taxes, sending out 1099 forms, all the boring, like what font should we use? Like all the boring stuff. Like that's what I handle in the background.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So
all right.
finding all of like our podcast partners and, setting up business deals and sponsorships. And again, all the stuff that happens in the background that literally no one cares about. That's the stuff that I handle. And I tell you what, Matt loves this arrangement because he would just love to just sit in a dark ass room and just chart these wide receivers. That's his happy place, baby. All right. The last thing he wants to do is issue a 1099. Let me tell you right now. All right. That is the last damn thing that my guy, Matt Harmon, wants to do. So he's been, so we've both been really, really happy with the arrangement and obviously working with him and doing all these shows and all the content and all that stuff, man. It's been great. So yeah, that's how this whole business arrangement came about.
Yeah, I was curious, and I appreciate you diving into that a little bit. And it sounds like a perfect marriage, like you're doing all the stuff that he might not want to do, and then he gets to just like control his little whatever, he's got his little happy place, and he lives in that spot, and that's good.
Right.
Awesome, man. Yeah, it's like I said, I'm a big fan, so I love what you guys do, and I'm glad you guys have that arrangement so you can keep pumping out good content. So what I did for today's show is I compiled a bunch of names that a lot of people don't know what to do with. A lot of these names that I'm going to list off and talk about, people might not want them on their roster anymore. Like they either had a rough rookie year or they've had a rough go of it in general, whether it's based on their offense or their actual skill set in general. So I'm going to go over these names, and I just want you to tell me if you're in or out, and what you should do with them if you're in or out. Like as far as like what value you think they have, and what you think they could be if they're not there yet. As far as like their production goes and their outlook as a whole in the NFL. The first name on the list is Dotson. So I had Dotson out of the Commanders. He is somebody that popped his rookie year. I think a lot of people expected a really good second year out of him based on the production that we saw.
Right.
What do we do with him? And what do we think he does for the future. He might be he's definitely looking at a new quarterback situation, possibly a new revamped offense over there. How do you feel about him as a whole when we're looking for his future outcome?
Well, I think he's in a really interesting spot there in Washington because, again, we're talking about a guy. If we're talking about, dynasty leagues, he's 23 years old, and he is clearly the number 2 wide receiver. Look, he had a really promising rookie campaign. He was above league average in terms of success rate on almost every single route in the route tree, right? But that being said, his overall numbers, right, where he was sub 70% success rate versus man coverage, that was 60th percentile, right? He was around 80% success rate for zone coverage. That's 64th percentile. So those are good scores. They're not like, oh my God scores, right? Yeah. And then you combine in the fact that, again, I just think Terry McLaurin is just a straight up better player in every aspect. I don't care.
Oh, yes.
I don't care about what area of the field we're talking about. I think Terry McLaurin is just a straight up better player. But that being said, he's 28 years old, right? So Washington is obviously going to revamp and rebuild here. They've got potentially a franchise quarterback coming their way, whoever it might end up being. Whether it's Jaden Daniels or Drake May, or maybe shockingly, maybe it'll be Caleb Williams. I don't know. But it seems like they'll have a cornerstone franchise quarterback there for years to come. And you want to be in the Dotson business, Now, again, there's certainly some areas where you're like, okay, this is a guy that in 2 years has not cracked 560 yards, right? But again, he's playing, I think, behind Terry McLaurin. But when McLaurin starts aging out a little bit, and maybe it's this year, I don't know. Maybe it's next year. I think Dotson will be in a really good spot to kind of sort of expand and grow. And again, I don't know if he'll ever be the, unquestioned one. I don't know if he'll ever be a dominant player. But I do think that there's a really strong chance that he is an overall number 1 wide receiver in this offense. And I don't know if it's this year, but it's looking like it may shape up to be next year. But brother, as you know, this stuff gets a little murky sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, if I'm projecting him out, I like his prospects, not in this upcoming year, but the season after.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I love Terry for this year, being like the safety blanket for a rookie quarterback, somebody that is going to make their job a little easier. I don't know. Like, that's how I feel about Dotson is like, yeah, he's somebody I have quite a bit of, and I don't really have expectations for at this point in time. But yeah, I can see that spinning that way where Terry's aging out and he's going to take more of the alpha role. Not to say that he's going to be the alpha, but like he's going to probably take more of that target share over as Terry gets up there. Because I think Terry's 28, maybe.
Yep, 28 years old. Yeah,
28 years old. Yeah, so he's getting out of that age. So that's Jalen Dotson, and then we have somebody that usage isn't there, but is in an elite offense. Peripherals aren't great, but we've seen flashes from this guy, Jameson Williams. So he's a harder sell for me. I'm very curious to see how you guys have. I've seen the perception of Jameson Williams, I think, and
yeah,
it is what it is. So it's not good.
Listen, this is a team in Detroit that is absolutely dying of thirst to have some kind of production as an outside X receiver. I mean, they are running out Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond. I mean, they're desperate. They are desperate for outside X production. And yet they moved up in the draft to spend a first round pick on Jameson Williams coming off of an injury. And he ain't it, man. Like, I'm sorry, but the draft capital they spent, it's a waste. He probably should have been a 3rd round pick. And if he was a 3rd round pick, I think, obviously I think his production now falls more in line with that. And people keep saying this guy was legitimately fast at Alabama. Yeah, I agree with that. What does that look like? First of all, what does that look like in the NFL? Obviously it doesn't look as good. And what does that look like post ACL? Obviously it doesn't look that good. I think when you factor in those two things where, first of all, there's a lot of guys that look extraordinarily fast in college when they're going up against these 5'10" DBs that are going to end up being car salesmen. But when you're going up against, Sauce Gardner or any of these other elite cornerbacks, bro, your fast ends up not looking very fast. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where Jameson Williams is at, because I don't think he does a lot of things that are nuanced or, basically he doesn't have advanced route running when we're talking about getting open downfield. I think he runs in a straight line. I don't think there's a lot of trickery in his game at all, And then, by the way, Sean Payton had a great quote about route running. You could be a great route runner going 0 to 60, or you could be a great route runner going 60 to 0, right? So it's the start-stop ability, I think, that also allows guys to be, create separation. And I think for me, I think Jameson Williams might be a great straight line dude, but I've seen almost nothing in regards to him being able to sink those hips and drop his weight down and come back to the football. I don't see that, man. So I'm not really thinking he's going to be anything more than just a bit player, somebody who will, again, have a use and a role. But I mean, unfortunately, he's looking a lot like another former Lion in DJ Chark. And I think that's the role that Jameson Williams may find himself playing for the next, 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, Jameson Williams, I think his most electric plays, like the going for 60-yard touchdowns, have been out of the backfield. I think the two really, really electric plays this past season were manufactured, he's going and end around, kind of like coming around and boom, handing it off, or doing a little shovel pass to him, and he's just running straight line, as you said, like he's going down the sideline. He's fast. He still looks fast in the NFL, but he doesn't look fast when he's out there on the outside or running routes. Right. It's just when he has that setup play where that's manufactured for him, you see that speed, but it doesn't benefit him at all, like out there on the outside from what I've seen. So, yeah. So kind of in on Dotson, definitely not in on JMO. So to recap that. Here's one that I felt like probably didn't need to be thrown out there, but there's a possibility that he maybe is moved, maybe sees a new fresh start somewhere. Whether that helps his dynasty value out, who knows? But Jerry Jeudy, is Jerry Jeudy a dead man, or is he somebody that's going to come back to life? Because as a prospect, I don't think I knew anybody out of the Jerry Jeudy train. I think everyone was on that train coming out of college. And if I'm mistakenly speaking here, I think he was in dynasty rookie drafts taking over the likes of like CeeDee Lamb. I think that was where he was, even JJ in that draft. I think it was just, it was awful, but I think he was up there, right? He was viewed as the wide receiver 1 of that class.
A lot of folks thought that Jerry Jeudy was a surefire, cannot miss player at the wide receiver position. And unless you talk to Matt Harmon, where he was like, I'm not so sure about Jerry Jeudy. Look, I think the problem really becomes, where does this guy play? Is he an outside flanker or is he a slot player? Because for me, I think a lot of people see his maybe most natural fit, or an area where he could probably be the best player, is in the slot. I think reception perception has shown that he cannot play the slot. It's impossible because this guy's success rate versus zone coverage is abysmal. Again, we don't have his 2023 numbers up quite yet, but he's never topped, 79% success rate versus zone. So that would put him in the bottom 50th percentile. And in 2022, it was really bad. This is the nadir of his career, right? 68.4% success rate versus zone coverage. That put him in the 5th percentile against zone. That is so bad. And the reason I bring that up is if you're going to be a slot player, brother, you have to be really good at reading zone coverage and knowing where the soft spots are, getting to the open area, turning back towards your quarterback, working with some timing and doing. I don't see that. All of these practice highlights that you ever saw of Jerry Jeudy, I was always really wary because he's beaten guys, he's beaten DBs in one-on-one drills. But the one thing that always concerned me when watching these highlights is I'm like, damn, dude, it takes him a long time to get out of that break, man. We're talking, a good 2.5, 3 seconds. Dude, look, it looks great on Twitter. Looks great on Twitter.
Already sacked. I think he's already down. Your
quarterback's already down. And again, especially if you're working as an inside player, you can't do that. Like, you got to get off the line quickly and get open very quickly. And those are the kind of routes that work if you're an inside player. So I don't think he's got the skill set to be an inside player. And that's weird, because I think a lot of folks thought that he might be a locked and loaded, slot receiver that could be a big slot guy that could go out and make some plays. So, all right. So now we've cut this pie pretty small. All right. He can't be an X. He doesn't have the speed, doesn't have the size, he doesn't have the route combinations to be an outside X. All right, so now you're saying he has to play flanker. Already we're talking about he can only play in 3 wide receiver sets.
Yeah.
Man, this is getting pretty this pie is getting pretty thin, man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So and there were some, some areas where I guess you could say he did all right, but again, in 2022, again, he was below league average on the corner route, below league average on the 9 route, below league average on the post route. I'm just, where is he supposed to win? I don't see it. So, and again, we're getting on too, by the way, right? We're getting on in years, man. It's not like he's that young of a player now.
Yeah, he's 25.
Yeah, he's going into his age 20.
He's going to 25. He's going,
so 25. Yep.
Yeah. So, you need to see it by now. Is there a world where somebody sits him down and says, dude, stop with the happy feet, and get a first move and just stick to it and then get off the line without having to dance? And it blows my mind that nobody's been like, hey, just chill with the feet, man.
I do think there's something to that. And again, probably a lot of it has to do with the coaching that he's gotten at the professional level as well. Denver has been in a state of flux, I think, from a coaching perspective, obviously, as they are on their 3rd head coach in 3 years here, or what is it? No, their 4th head coach in 3 years, right?
Yeah.
So obviously there is a lot of turmoil, I think, from top down, right? So, I think if he did have a fresh start somewhere, I'd be open to the possibility that he could have a better season. But I think the days of the expectations that Jerry Jeudy is going to live up to his draft profile are dead. I think at best he can be a solid player, a player who, again, I don't think you want Jerry Jeudy to be your number 2. I think you want Jerry Jeudy to be a rotational player, a really good playmaking number 3 guy, a guy that can step in and make plays every now and again, make some splash plays here and there. To rely on him on a consistent basis, given his scores against man and press coverage and especially against zone coverage, that's not looking good. So I think if he gets a fresh start, I think he can still be a better player. But again, I think you got to set expectations, man. We're talking about a guy that has never cracked 1,000 yards, right? And quite frankly, if he gets to a new situation, maybe he gets to 1,000 at some point in his career, but I don't think we're ever talking about a guy that ever gets to 1,200.
Yeah. What if he lands on the Texans? What if the Texans go trade him, go get him for a third rounder or something?
Nope.
Like what would his value be? No, wouldn't like that at all.
Nothing.
There doesn't
He'd
move
be
you at all.
he'd be the fourth option on that team, right? He'd be
Fourth.
it'd be
Yeah,
Nico
actually,
Collins.
yeah.
It'd be Nico Collins. It'd be Tank Dell. It'd be a running back, maybe a tight end, depending on what they do there at tight end. And then we're talking Jerry Jeudy. So at best, I think he's a fourth option on that offense. So no, that's DOA. If he goes to Houston, it's DOA. No,
so he needs
value.
like he needs like who would be a great spot?
I mean, he could go to Atlanta, play opposite Drake London, be the number 2 there. Again, he'd still be he'd be the number 2 wide receiver, but he'd be the number 3 option, right? Like they'd go Drake London, they'd go Bijan, and then maybe they go Kyle Pitts, maybe they go Jerry Jeudy. I don't know. Again, Kyle Pitts is another player I'm a little bit torn on. We'll see what he looks like post Arthur Smith. But certainly, he could go to Atlanta. They got no one in Atlanta outside of Drake London. Like no one. I mean, he's walking into a minimum of 100. He has to walk into 100 targets there. Has to. There's nothing else. There is nothing else.
You're right. Because who was their wide receiver 2 last year? Who was it? Olamide Zacchaeus? No,
Matt Collins?
Matt Collins. So Matt, have you ever watched his TikToks? He does really good laundry TikToks. He shows you how to do your laundry in an efficient manner. He's telling us that you use too much detergent. So you got to minimize your detergent, put ice cubes in the dryer, all this good stuff.
Ice cubes in the dryer?
Dude, I don't know what's going on, but he's telling us he needs moisture in the dryer. Yeah, go check it out.
I love it. I love it.
He's a good
by the way, speaking of Jerry Jeudy, okay, so like Jerry Jeudy, let's say he goes to Atlanta, gets 100 targets. You're like, oh, man, if Jerry Jeudy sees 100 targets, there ain't no way he's going to blow up. Bro, in 2020, his rookie year, 113 targets. 113 targets, 856 yards. Not even 900. In 2022, 100 targets. 100 targets in 2022, 972 yards. Again, it's just... You can't tell me he hasn't had the opportunity. He's had the opportunity.
Drew Lock, lateral passes, like thrown to the back of behind the line of scrimmage or at the line of scrimmage, But
right.
It is, he still got targets, and you're right. Like I don't know, I don't have any excuses for Jerry Jeudy anymore. I think if that conversation comes up on a podcast, I just eat it, because I don't see a lot of, silver linings or, the sunshine's not coming out through the clouds anywhere that I can see it. So,
I mean, it's tough, right? Like I said, not great against zone, not great against man. It takes him a little while to get out of his breaks, and then his hands are shaky too. I mean, he has a sub 60% catch rate on his career. Man, the people who are still high on Jerry Jeudy, I got to know why. Like, what are we looking at here? Whether we're looking at analytics, whether we're looking at counting stats, whether we're looking at the game film, like what are we looking at with Jerry Jeudy where we're still optimistic? Because at this point in his career, we're talking, what is it, four years in now, going into year number 5. Where's the optimism? Like, what are you basing the optimism on? I don't know. To me, like I said, I think he served in real life. He would serve as a good number 3. Where he goes to a team. I mean, shoot, man, like send him to Detroit, where again, hopefully they draft one of these big X receivers in the draft. A rookie plays X receiver for them. Jerry Jeudy plays flanker, and Amon-Ra St. Brown just soaks up all the targets in the short to intermediate area of the field. You know what? Detroit might actually be a good spot for him from a real life perspective. And I do think because of all the attention that Amon-Ra gets and the running game gets, there's going to be a lot of one-on-one coverage on the outside at the flanker. And I think that may actually be a decent spot for him.
Yeah, I think he needs a revival. Not necessarily for fantasy purposes, because I don't think he's ever going to be, like we talked about, a a wide receiver 1 or a wide receiver
Yeah.
2 in fantasy. I think he is
Right.
that solid wide receiver 3. And yeah, he might need to be in a situation where it's foolproof, like that. Like you just said, Detroit would be great for him. Um, Another guy that I did want to touch on, I don't like to use the term injury prone, but I think we probably are pretty close with this guy. It's Christian Watson out of Green Bay. Um,
Yeah.
I he has shown me, like I've seen him show that he is a going to be a decent target in that offense at points in time. The only problem with him is that he hasn't been that decent target for more than 2 games or 3 games or whatever it is that he's. Are you in on the talent of Christian Watson? And the situation is really wishy-washy, or what are you doing with Christian Watson?
I think he has certainly been a super athletic guy. We know he's a size speed freak. Given his size, given his speed, he does a lot of great things in over the top, right? And again, in 2022, the way he closed out that season was just incredible, catching touchdowns and long ones, all of that, right? So, but yeah, you talk about some of the injuries that have popped up in his career, right? So he underwent a minor surgery in 2022 to his knee, and he's had hamstring injuries basically both seasons of his NFL career, right? Where he's really missed a lot of time with these soft tissue injuries, right? So I'm not I'm not quite as concerned about the soft tissue stuff because I don't know, maybe it pops up again and again. I'm not sure, but I don't think it's probably that great to bank on those. Again, if it was a meniscus tear or like an ACL or a ligament tear or something like that, then of course, obviously we're talking about rates of re-injury are higher. But when we're talking about hamstrings, I don't know, man. I'm of the mindset, and I'm no injury expert, but I am of the mindset that I think you kind of sort of just play it year by year. And you kind of sort of read, where he's at in his training as we start approaching draft season. But I'm okay with the injuries. I know last year was super disappointing, and he's had some injuries, obviously, to start his career too. But going into year number 3, man, I think I'm okay with it. I'm intrigued. I'm really interested to see what he could do with Jordan Love. Jordan Love's obviously coming into his own as a passer as well. I'm not as crazy as some other people about Jordan Love right now because a lot of the work that he has done has been against bad teams. But hey, listen, he's on the come up. That's for sure. And yeah, like, Give me a quarterback that can throw the deep ball, pairing him with a player in Christian Watson that can run deep routes. So yeah, I think those things work, man. And I don't want to say I'm all in on the guy, but I do think because of his injury-riddled history that folks are a little bit hesitant here on Christian Watson. If we're talking from a dynasty standpoint, yeah, I'd go make an offer. I'd make a low offer to see what you can pry away Christian Watson with for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you've swayed me a little bit, and yeah, I don't like to have injuries dictate the value of a player. That's not how I operate as a manager or somebody that, putting out that kind of injury-based content or anything like that. I do love him in that offense, like the idea of him being in that offense regularly every game and building that rapport with Jordan Love excites me for sure. With the Green Bay in general, who are these guys that they're throwing to? Like we're talking about Dontavian Wicks, we have Robian Dobbs, Jaden Reed. Who do you want on this team, and who do you think is going to be like that withstanding guy? I think Christian Watson, Jaden Reed are pretty, safe. But who else do you want on that team? Like, is there anybody that you're targeting from a fantasy perspective and dynasty?
Probably not. I think the way this offense is configured, that I don't think any of these guys are going to be dominant target earners. And by the way, also just from their player profiles, I don't think any of them will be dominant target getters. Again, Matt has a saying that targets are earned, right? And I think in this offense, who is a guy that can consistently get open? It's not Watson. It's not Romeo Doubs. I think it's probably Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed in a one-on-one situation, I think he can get open, Now that being said, I think he can get open in the short to intermediate areas of the field. I don't think, and I could be wrong, again, we haven't fully charted the guy yet, but I don't think, just eyeball test wise, I don't think Jaden Reed's ever going to be a deep downfield guy. And by the way, this Green Bay offense, that's what they need that, I truly think if you want to, if you are just wish casting and thinking about the perfect player in this Packers offense, and who would that be? Somebody like what, right? And it's somebody who can win underneath, but also beat you over the top. That's the guy that could potentially go for 1,400 yards in this offense. I think all these other dudes, look, I think they're all going to be somewhere. And again, Dontavian Wicks was really interesting. Bo Melton randomly, obviously showed some athletic ability as well. Then, and again, the tight ends are going to get involved too. Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, I thought, showed some stuff on film. So I think it's just going to be spread out among these 5 or 6 guys. Obviously it's a run based offense too. And man, I don't know. I like Watson. I'm interested in the upside of Watson. But I don't think Christian Watson ever gives you that, 1,200 yard, 10 touchdown season. I think he's more of like a, 900 to 1,000 yard dude if he stays healthy. And anywhere between 7 to 10 touchdowns every single year. He's going to be a touchdown guy. He's always a touchdown. So that's going to be good.
Yeah.
But I would probably say Jaden Reed would probably be the next man up for me. And again, somebody who I think at his absolute, if we're talking like peaking, I think Jaden Reed is like an 1,100, maybe 1,150 yard guy and like 6 to 8 touchdowns, a lot of receptions, something like, 80 to 90 receptions or whatever it might be. But I think that's the guy, and the thing that's mucking it up though, brother, is the fact that Romeo Doubs has a connection. People who say that he doesn't have, him and Jordan Love have some kind of, little mind.
Yeah, there's something going on there. Yeah.
There's a little something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you guys on reception perception. I feel like there's, they have that connection. they flow. They do. They know each other's. They've been practicing. I'm sure that he was with Love on the practice field all of last year. In especially when he wasn't seeing the field that often. He was probably with the second offense, and they were just building that connection up.
Totally.
So
that mucks it up for me a little bit, man. And if you start talking about 3 guys, and oh, by the way, people really high on Dontavian Wicks too. I know my guy Matt Harmon's real high on Dontavian Wicks, man. Where does the target share all go? Where does it all go? And again, by the way, because of the coach and the coaching philosophy, Matt LaFleur's never going to throw the ball 600 times. This is not going to be one of those these crazy, Drew Brees off. It's just not going to happen. It's a run first team, and with LaFleur, it's a run first mentality. So
Aaron Jones still sees 20 carries a game, and he
100%.
He sees about 7 catches out of the backfield on average too. He's just he's the wide receiver 3 most days.
Yeah. Right.
Anyway.
So what are we going to do here? So again, I just feel like I said, man, I just, the target share is really murky. And so I'm a little bit worried about all those guys from a fantasy perspective, but real life, it's good. It's good to have that problem of too much depth. But if I had to pick one guy who I think is the most surefire, it's probably Jaden Reed, but even his upside, I think, is capped somewhat.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm glad we talked a lot about the Green Bay offense, because the next guy I have on here, we're probably not going to talk about a lot at all. I put I put Quentin Johnston on this list. I I don't know. I don't know. I just
He's done. He's done.
I know he's done. He's dead. Okay, he's
done.
dead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dead. There's no hope, dude. Listen,
There's no hope. I know.
I don't know how to put this, but there's just, and like you could, old takes me. It's all good. I'm gonna come out and tell you right now, Quentin Johnson has no chance.
I love it.
He's just not. I don't know how to. He's just not good at catching the ball.
Yeah, and he's not. He looks absolutely broken. He just. Can we talk about that for a second? Like he looks
mentally.
Yes, like he
yeah.
like is out of the league in like 2 years, kind of broken. Like
he's a first round pick. He's a first round pick, so he will be in the league for 6 years minimum. But dude, yeah, I don't know, man. Like again, I don't know. I don't know what the Chargers were thinking. These red flags were on his game tape out of TCU. He's not a high point catch guy. He's not a hands catcher. He's not a contested catch. I mean, contested catch is probably the worst thing about his game at TCU. And if anything, like, they would manufacture these like ridiculous, drags for him or whatever, and he would just take him to the cribbo. You can't function that way in the NFL. Like, how is a man of his size, unless you're Calvin Johnson, he's not unless you're Calvin Johnson, you cannot take a guy of his size and speed can't take a drag route to the crib. Like, it's not happening. Okay. You're going to do that against a 5'8" DB in the Big 12. Sure. Go ahead. Okay. It ain't happening. Yeah. It's not happening in the NFL. So like, those are some of his best plays out of TCU was after the catch. But it was so obvious that after the catch, it was going to be it would be problematic for him to have that kind of success after the catch in the NFL. I don't know, man. Again, not a good separator, doesn't have good hands, not a great route runner. I don't see it, man. I really don't know. How does this man succeed? I don't see him being a successful NFL player.
Yeah. We're aligned. I was aligned with you on all these guys actually, but yeah, I don't know. I want to meet somebody that is in on Quentin Johnston still. I just thought, maybe there was something there, but
from a counting stats perspective, he did have some good games. He did. I mean, you can't take that away. He had some good games when everyone was injured. And he was the only show in town. Yeah, he had some games where the counting stats were nice.
Yep.
That's it. But from if you just watched him play perspective, it was never nice. It was never nice. So I don't know, man. Again, he'd have to go to a situation where, I don't know where he would fit. He's not a good, reliable outside X receiver. He needs to be off the line, which means he needs to be, a flanker dude. Okay. Now we're automatically, he's not playing in unless he's in a 3 wide receiver set. That pie is getting thin, boys. That pie is getting thin.
Yep. Before I let you go, just a couple more things that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
You tell me, we did talk about the Texans quickly, but Nico Collins and Tank Dell, are you in on both of them? Are they good? They're set and forget it. They are ready to go. None of them are going to be affected by each other. Like, we saw Nico produce without Tank Dell. We saw Tank produce with Nico. Like they are good at value currently for you.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, we're talking about playing with a guy in CJ Stroud that last year threw the ball less than 500 times, 499 pass attempts for CJ Stroud. That will be the first and only time he will be below 500 pass attempts, in my opinion, in his career, barring injury. Okay. And by the way, he was injured. That's why he didn't get to 500 pass attempts. Okay. So for me, I just think, again, if he stays healthy, and there's really no reason why he wouldn't stay healthy, relative to the position. I think there's just so much meat on this bone, man. So again, we're talking about, chunks out of that 500, let's say 550 pass attempts for CJ Stroud moving forward per year. Again, of those 550-ish pass attempts, how much is going to Nico? How much is going to Tank Dell? I think both of them will see plenty. I don't know if Nico will ever be a 150 target guy. I don't see that because that's just not his game. But you're telling me this guy's going to see, 120 targets. You're saying Tank Dell's going to see 120 targets per year? Oh, baby, come on, dude. Yeah, those guys with that target share for sure. I'm good, man. Those guys are absolutely going to eat. So yeah, no, I'm good with where they're at. Look, I don't think that Nico, I don't know how high he's going to go. Now, come back to me when we start talking like June, July in redraft. And if Nico Collins is starting to creep up there into the third round, I may caution. I may say, let's have a little bit of caution here, But certainly I think I'm comfortable in a redraft situation. I'm comfortable with him, maybe late third round, but early fourth. But if he starts creeping into that early third, late second round, all right, maybe I'll be out at that price. But if we're just talking overall, Dynasty, yeah, man, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, I think these guys are fine.
Yeah, in Dynasty startups right now, Nico Collins is going like where Higgins and Devonta Smith are. Does that feel right to you? Like he's in that tier of player, like usually like the end of the third, early fourth round-ish, around there.
Yeah, I would have him ahead of Devonta Smith, just because AJ Brown is such a heavy target getter. But yeah, I think that's about right for me. That's actually, as a matter of fact, that's the perfect grouping for him, high quality player. I don't think he'll ever be, I don't think he'll ever be a 150 target guy, but a high quality player, can beat man coverage and obviously wins in the areas that are super important in the NFL, which is deep downfield, good in contested catch. Yeah, I mean, I think you mark him down for 120 plus targets each and every year.
I love it, man. I love it. I have a lot of Nico. I have a lot of everybody, man. I think I'm in too many leagues at this point, but dude, I appreciate you coming on, man. You were great. Obviously, I can't say enough great things about you, but is there anything that you want to throw out there? I know everyone can find you on Reception Perception, but anything else that you have going on that you want to plug before we sign off?
No, man. I mean, again, if you guys would, subscribe to the podcast, Reception Perception, the show, everywhere you get your podcast, that would be great. And obviously you can find me on social media, all across the board at James D. Koh. Last name is spelled K-O-H, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, it's the same handle. It's the same handle everywhere. So at James D. Koh, you go ahead and find me. And a lot of the fantasy stuff, a lot of the football stuff will be posted on there.
Awesome. That is James D. Koh. James, I appreciate you. And I hope you guys have a good night.
All right, man. Peace. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.